The planet Valon 7 was a world of towering spires, shimmering cities, and skies painted with hues no human eye had ever seen. Its inhabitants, the Valonians, were an advanced species that prided themselves on their technological prowess and their ability to instill fear in others. For centuries, they had traveled across galaxies, conquering weaker civilizations and spreading their dominion far and wide. To them, fear was not just an emotion. It was a weapon, one they wielded with precision. Chancellor Tarkin stood at the apex of this empire. A tall, imposing figure with skin that glowed faintly under artificial light, he ruled with an iron fist and a calculating mind. His advisors whispered that he could sense weakness in others before they even realized it themselves. It was said that no race had ever faced the Valonians and emerged unscathed. And yet, as Tarkin gazed out from his observation deck high above the capital city, something unusual caught his attention. One of his officers, General Kyun, approached cautiously. Unlike Tarkin, who radiated authority without effort, Kyun relied on sheer physical presence to command respect. He was broad-shouldered and carried himself with military precision. "Chancellor," he began, bowing slightly, "our orbital sensors have detected an unidentified object entering our atmosphere." Tarkin turned slowly, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Unidentified? Explain." Kyun hesitated for a moment, then continued. "It appears to be some kind of spacecraft. Its design is unconventional. Our systems cannot classify it. It seems primitive in structure, but there are signs of modifications, improvised repairs perhaps. We believe it may belong to a previously unknown species." Tarkin's lips curled into a faint smile. "Primitive or not, any new species represented both an opportunity and a challenge. Prepare a team to investigate. Bring me whatever or whoever is inside." The crash site was located near the outskirts of the capital city. By the time Kyun and Commander Yunji arrived, the wreckage had already drawn a crowd of curious onlookers. Yunji, unlike Kyun, was known for her sharp intellect rather than brute strength. She moved gracefully among the debris, her keen eyes scanning every detail. Her slender frame belied her reputation as one of the most effective strategists in the Valonian fleet. The alien craft lay half buried in the ground, its surface scorched and battered. Smoke curled lazily into the air, carrying with it the faint smell of burning metal. Despite its damaged state, the ship exuded a strange resilience, as if defying the forces that had brought it down. "Careful," Kyun warned, raising a hand to signal his troops to hold their positions. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." Yunji stepped closer, ignoring his caution. She knelt beside the ship and pressed a scanner against its hull. The device beeped softly, feeding data into her wrist console. "Interesting," she murmured. "This material, it's unlike anything in our databases. Primitive alloys combined with something else. Organic compounds, maybe." Before Kyun could respond, a loud groan echoed from within the ship. Both officers froze, their weapons instinctively drawn. The sound was followed by a series of metallic clangs, as though someone, or something, was trying to force their way out. Finally, a section of the hull creaked open, revealing three figures silhouetted against the dim interior light. They stumbled out, coughing and shielding their eyes from the brightness of Valon 7's twin suns. Their appearance shocked everyone present. They were small compared to the towering Valonians, with pale skin and dark hair. Their clothing was tattered and mismatched, patched together from various fabrics and materials. Yet despite their disheveled state, they carried themselves with surprising confidence. One of them, a man with short-cropped hair and a determined expression, spoke first. "Wow," he said, looking around. His voice was calm, almost amused. "Not exactly five-star accommodations, is it?" Kyun frowned. "Who are you?" he demanded, stepping forward. The man grinned. "Captain Jihoon," he replied, gesturing to his companions. "And these are Lieutenant Suyon and Engineer Minwoo. Nice to meet you. Could someone point us to the nearest pub? This landing wasn't exactly smooth." Yunji exchanged a glance with Kyun. These creatures spoke in riddles, displaying none of the fear or submission expected from lesser beings. Even when surrounded by armed soldiers, they seemed unfazed. "You are trespassing on Valonian territory," Kyun growled, raising his weapon. You will come with us. Jihoon raised his hands mockingly. Oh, sure thing. Lead the way, big guy. Just try not to step on me. I bruise easily. Suyeon, standing quietly beside Jihoon, rolled her eyes. She was shorter than him, with a no-nonsense demeanor that suggested she'd seen worse situations than this. Can we skip the theatrics? She asked dryly. We're tired, hungry, and frankly, your planet smells weird. Let's get this over with. Minwoo, the third member of the group, simply shrugged. He was busy examining the wreckage of their ship, muttering to himself about fuel lines and stabilizers. When a Valonian soldier prodded him with a rifle, he merely swatted it away like an annoying insect. Kyun's patience was wearing thin. Take them to the capital, he ordered his troops, and keep them restrained. I want to know everything about these humans. Back at the capital, Chancellor Tarkin awaited the arrival of the captives with growing curiosity. Reports from the field described their behavior as baffling, neither fearful nor aggressive, but oddly dismissive of the Valonians' power. When Jihoon, Suyeon, and Minwoo were finally brought before him, Tarkin studied them carefully. So, he said, his voice low and commanding, you claim to be from a planet called Earth? Jihoon nodded. That's right. Lovely place. Beaches, mountains, bad coffee. Oh, and did I mention we invented war? You might have heard of it. It's kind of our thing. Tarkin ignored the sarcasm. Your vessel suggests otherwise. Your technology is inferior. Your defenses non-existent. How did you survive long enough to reach my planet? Jihoon leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Survival isn't about having the biggest guns or the shiniest toys. It's about knowing how to adapt. Something tells me you haven't had to worry about that too much. For the first time, Tarkin felt a flicker of unease. These humans were different, not just physically, but mentally. They didn't react the way other species did. Their defiance bordered on arrogance. Yet it was clear they weren't bluffing. There was something unsettling about their calmness, their refusal to show fear. Perhaps, Tarkin said after a pause, we underestimated you, but rest assured, you will learn your place here. Jihoon smirked. Oh, I'm sure you'll try. But, let me give you a heads up. You think you know fear? Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. As the guards led the humans away, Tarkin remained seated, deep in thought. For all their bravado, he sensed a deeper truth behind Jihoon's words. These humans were unpredictable, resilient, and dangerously clever. Whatever secrets they held, Tarkin intended to uncover them, even if it meant pushing them to their limits. Little did he know, the real challenge had only just begun. The humans were taken to a facility deep beneath the capital city, a place designed for interrogation and experimentation. The Valonians called it the Mind Forge, a labyrinth of sterile corridors, glowing panels, and humming machinery. It was here that the Empire broke the spirits of its enemies, using advanced technology to simulate their deepest fears and insecurities. For the Valonians, fear was not just an emotion, it was a tool, one they had mastered over centuries of conquest. General Kyun oversaw the operation personally, his towering frame pacing back and forth as technicians prepared the testing chambers. Commander Yoonji stood nearby, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. She had been quiet since the humans' capture, her sharp mind working overtime to make sense of their behavior. They were unlike any species she had encountered before. Small, fragile-looking, yet utterly unshaken by the Valonians' might. Kyun turned to her abruptly. What do you think? He asked, his voice low but tinged with irritation. Are they truly fearless? Or are they simply playing games? Yoonji hesitated before answering. I don't know, she admitted. But I've never seen anyone react like this. Even when we threatened them, they didn't flinch. It's unsettling. Kyun grunted in agreement. We'll see how long their bravado lasts once we put them through the simulations. He gestured toward the observation room, where Jihoon, Suyeon, and Minwoo sat in separate cells. Each cell was equipped with sensors that monitored heart rate, brain activity, and other vital signs. The data would help the Valonians tailor the tests to each individual's weaknesses. Jihoon leaned against the wall of his cell, his legs stretched out in front of him. He looked bored, tapping his fingers rhythmically on his knee. When a guard entered to escort him to the testing chamber, he stood without hesitation, flashing a grin that seemed almost mocking. "Finally," he said, "I was starting to think you guys forgot about me." The guard ignored him, shoving Jihoon forward roughly. Suyan watched silently from her own cell, her sharp eyes following every movement. Minwoo, meanwhile, was busy tinkering with a loose panel on the wall, muttering under his breath about wiring and circuits. None of them showed any sign of fear. In the testing chamber, Jihoon found himself standing on a platform surrounded by holographic projections. The room was dark except for the eerie glow of the screens, which flickered to life as the simulation began. Kyun and Yoonji observed from behind a one-way mirror, eager to see how the human would react. The first scenario placed Jihoon in a dense forest at night. Shadows moved between the trees, and strange noises echoed all around him. The air grew colder, and the ground beneath his feet became slick with mud. A low growl reverberated through the darkness, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. Jihoon tilted his head, studying the scene with mild interest. "Clever," he said aloud. "You're trying to scare me with monsters? That's cute." Suddenly, a massive creature emerged from the shadows, a snarling beast with glowing red eyes and rows of razor-sharp teeth. It lunged toward Jihoon, its claws slashing through the air. But instead of screaming or backing away, Jihoon laughed. "Is that the best you've got?" he taunted, stepping closer to the illusion. "Back home, we call this Saturday morning cartoons." The simulation shifted, attempting to adapt. This time, Jihoon found himself trapped in a narrow corridor with walls closing in on either side. The space grew tighter and tighter, pressing against him until he could barely move. Claustrophobia, a common fear among many species. Surely, this would break him, but Jihoon only sighed. "Oh, come on," he muttered. "Really? This is your big plan? Look, I've been stuck in worse places than this. Try harder next time." Frustrated, the system switched again, plunging Jihoon into an endless void. There was no ground, no sky, no sense of direction, just empty space stretching infinitely in every direction. Most beings would panic in such a situation, overwhelmed by the lack of control. But Jihoon simply closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged as if meditating. "You can keep throwing these tricks at me," he said calmly, "but it won't work. You see, where I come from, fear isn't something we let control us. We face it, laugh at it, and then we crush it." Kyun slammed his fist against the console in anger. "This is impossible," he snapped. "No one should be able to resist the simulations like this." Yoonji remained silent, her gaze fixed on Jihoon. There was something about his demeanor, his confidence, that intrigued her. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to these humans than met the eye. Meanwhile, Suyan and Minwoo underwent similar tests, though their reactions differed slightly. In her simulation, Suyan found herself in a burning building, flames licking at her skin as smoke filled the air. Instead of panicking, she quickly assessed the environment, locating exits and calculating escape routes. When the fire intensified, she solved puzzles embedded in the simulation to deactivate traps and barriers, moving through the maze-like structure with ease. Minwoo, on the other hand, treated his test like a game. His simulation involved being chased by mechanical drones armed with energy weapons. Rather than running blindly, he dismantled parts of the virtual environment, using debris to construct makeshift shields and traps. By the time the drones caught up to him, he had rigged a feedback loop that caused their systems to overload. When the three humans were reunited afterward, they exchanged knowing glances. Jihoon smirked. "Well, that was entertaining," he said. "Did you enjoy the show too?" Suyan rolled her eyes. "Entertaining? More like predictable. Honestly, I expected better from a so-called advanced civilization." Minwoo nodded in agreement. "Yeah, I mean, their tech isn't bad, but they clearly haven't figured out how to use it properly. Give me 5 minutes with their equipment, and I could probably hack half their systems." Their nonchalant attitude infuriated Kyun further. He stormed into the holding area, his glowing eyes blazing with fury. "Enough!" he bellowed. "Your defiance ends now. Tell me, what makes you so immune to fear? What gives you the audacity to mock us?" Jihoon shrugged. "It's simple, really. Fear is just another obstacle. On Earth, we've faced extinction-level events, wars, plagues, you name it, and every time we've adapted, survived, and come out stronger. Your little tricks? They're nothing compared to what we've already overcome. Kyun clenched his fists, struggling to maintain his composure. Beside him, Yoonji stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. You speak as though your species is superior, she said. But we've conquered countless worlds. What makes Earth so special? Ji-hoon met her gaze, his expression serious for the first time. Because we fight for something greater than power or dominance. We fight for each other. For our families, our friends, our future. That's what makes us dangerous and unstoppable. The room fell silent as Yoonji processed his words. For the first time, she began to doubt the righteousness of the Velonian cause. These humans weren't just resilient. They were united by a purpose that transcended fear itself. Chancellor Tarkin listened intently as Kyun reported the results of the tests. His glowing eyes narrowed as he absorbed the details, his mind racing with possibilities. They resisted every attempt to break them, Kyun concluded. Even under extreme conditions, they displayed remarkable composure and resourcefulness. Tarkin leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Fascinating, he murmured. Perhaps we underestimated them, but there is one arena where even the strongest will falter, the Kolvar arena. Let's see how they fare against true terror. Kyun nodded eagerly, but Yoonji hesitated. Chancellor, she began cautiously, might it be wise to reconsider? These humans, they are not like the others we have faced. Their strength lies not in their bodies, but in their minds. Perhaps... Enough. Tarkin interrupted sharply. Fear is universal, Commander. No matter how clever or defiant, every species has its breaking point. The humans will be no exception. As the plans were set in motion, Ji-hoon, Suyeon, and Minwoo prepared themselves for whatever came next. They knew the Velonians wouldn't give up easily, but they also knew one thing for certain. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology or its courage. It was its refusal to surrender, and that, more than anything, terrified the Velonians. The Kolvar Arena was a place of legend, both feared and revered across the Velonian Empire. It was a massive structure carved into the heart of the capital city, its towering walls adorned with glowing runes that pulsed with energy. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation, the crowd buzzing with excitement as thousands of Velonians gathered to witness the spectacle. For centuries, the arena had been the stage for brutal battles, prisoners pitted against genetically engineered, predators, warriors forced to fight until their last breath. It was here that Chancellor Tarkin intended to break the humans once and for all. Ji-hoon, Suyeon, and Minwoo were marched into the arena under heavy guard. Their hands were bound, but their spirits remained unbroken. Despite the overwhelming odds, they exchanged confident glances, silently reinforcing their resolve. Ji-hoon cracked a wry smile as he surveyed the cheering crowd. Looks like we're the main event, he said. Hope they brought snacks. Suyeon rolled her eyes. Focus, Ji-hoon. This isn't a game anymore. Minwoo adjusted his glasses, which had somehow survived the crash and subsequent captivity. Relax, he said. We've faced worse. Just stick to C. The plan. The plan was simple. Adapt, survive, and exploit any weaknesses they could find. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. As they stood in the center of the arena, the crowd erupted into cheers. Chancellor Tarkin appeared on a balcony high above, his glowing form casting an eerie light over the proceedings. He raised a hand, and the noise subsided. People of Velon 7, he declared, his voice amplified to fill the vast space. Today you will witness the downfall of these defiant creatures. They claim to be fearless, but let us see how they fare against true terror. The Zarnok! The ground beneath them trembled as a massive gate opened at the far end of the arena. From the shadows emerged the Zarnok, a hulking beast that seemed to defy nature. Its skin was covered in jagged plates, its claws glinted like polished steel, and its mouth dripped with acidic saliva that sizzled upon contact with the stone floor. The creature roared, a deafening sound that echoed through the arena, sending shivers down the spines of even the most hardened Velonians. The crowd cheered wildly, eager for bloodshed. But the humans remained calm, their eyes locked on the monster. Before them. Ji-hoon stepped forward, his chains rattling softly. "All right," he muttered. "Big and ugly. Got it." Kyun, standing beside Tarkin, leaned forward eagerly. "This is it," he said. "Let's see how long their bravado lasts." The Zarnok charged without warning, its massive body barreling toward the humans with terrifying speed. The crowd roared in approval, certain that the battle would end quickly. But Ji-hoon didn't flinch. Instead, he shouted, "Suyeon, now!" Suyeon darted to the side, her movements swift and precise. She grabbed a discarded weapon from the ground, a metal rod left behind by previous fighters, and hurled it at the Zarnok's face. The projectile struck the creature's eye, causing it to stumble and roar in pain. Seizing the opportunity, Ji-hoon grabbed another piece of debris and hurled it at the beast's legs, forcing it to slow down. Meanwhile, Minwoo scanned the arena, his mind working furiously. He spotted a pile of loose stones near the edge of the battlefield and began dragging them toward the center. "Over here," he called to his teammates. "We need to make something useful." Ji-hoon and Suyeon regrouped beside him, dodging the Zarnok's swipes as they worked together. Using the stones and scraps of metal, Minwoo assembled a crude spear, sharpening the tip with a jagged shard. "Not pretty," he admitted, holding up the makeshift weapon, "but it'll do." The Zarnok recovered from its initial injuries and turned its attention back to the humans. With a guttural growl, it lunged again, its claws slicing through the air. This time, Ji-hoon met the attack head-on, using the spear to parry the blow. Sparks flew as metal scraped against metal, and the crowd gasped in disbelief. A human, armed, with nothing more than a scrap of junk, was holding his own against one of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. Suyeon took advantage of the distraction, climbing onto the Zarnok's back with surprising agility. She jammed the broken weapon into the creature's neck, causing it to thrash violently. Ji-hoon and Minwoo worked in tandem, dodging the flailing limbs and striking whenever they saw an opening. Each blow weakened the Zarnok further, its roars growing weaker with every passing moment. Finally, with a final desperate strike, Ji-hoon drove the spear deep into the creature's chest. The Zarnok let out a final ear-splitting roar before collapsing to the ground, lifeless. The arena fell silent, the crowd staring in shock at what they had just witnessed. For a moment, there was no sound except the faint hum of the arena's energy field. Then, slowly, the silence gave way to murmurs of disbelief. Never before had prisoners managed to defeat a Zarnok, not without advanced weaponry or outside assistance. And yet, these humans had done it with nothing more than teamwork and ingenuity. Chancellor. Tarkin's expression darkened as he watched the scene unfold. Beside him, Kyun clenched his fists in frustration. "Impossible," he muttered. "How could they—" "They adapted," Yoonji interrupted, her voice soft but firm. "Just as Ji-hoon said they would. They didn't rely on strength or technology. They relied on each other." Tarkin turned to her sharply. "Silence, Commander. This changes nothing. They may have won this battle, but they are still outnumbered and outgunned. Their defiance will not save them." Yoonji said nothing, though her thoughts churned with doubt. She couldn't deny the skill and determination she had seen in the humans. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not through brute force, but through sheer willpower and cooperation. It was a stark contrast to the Valonians' methods, which relied on fear and domination. Back in their holding cell, the humans tended to their wounds, their exhaustion evident, but their spirits high. Ji-hoon grinned as he examined a cut on his arm. "Not bad for a day's work, huh?" Suyeon smirked. "Could have been worse. At least we didn't have to deal with another one of those things." Minwoo chuckled, inspecting the remains of their makeshift weapons. "Next time, maybe we can build something better, like a flamethrower." Their laughter echoed through the cell, a testament to their resilience. Despite everything they had endured, they refused to give up. They knew the Valonians wouldn't stop coming after them, but they also knew one thing for certain. Humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons or technology, but in its ability to come together in the face of adversity. As the hours passed, rumors began to spread among the Valonian population. Stories of the humans' victory in the Kolvar arena spread like wildfire, sparking debates and whispers of doubt. For the first time in centuries, the people of Valon 7 began to question whether their empire was truly invincible, or if there was something greater waiting beyond the stars. And somewhere in the shadows, Yunji watched silently, her loyalty wavering. She had always believed in the Valonian cause, but now, for the first time, she wondered if fear was truly the strongest weapon, or if there was something more powerful waiting to be discovered. The humans' victory in the Kolvar arena sent shockwaves through Valon 7. For the first time in centuries, the Valonians were forced to confront a truth they had long ignored. Not every species could be broken by fear. Chancellor Tarkin, however, refused to see this as a defeat. To him, it was merely an obstacle, a challenge to overcome with greater force and cunning. He decided that Earth itself would be the next target. If these defiant creatures thought they were safe on their distant planet, they were gravely mistaken. Tarkin ordered the human ship repaired and equipped with tracking devices. His plan was simple yet ruthless. Send them back to Earth, follow them to their homeworld, and crush humanity under the weight of the Valonian Empire. It was a calculated move, one designed to exploit the humans' loyalty to their people. Tarkin believed that once the humans saw the full might of his fleet unleashed upon their world, they would crumble, and Earth would fall without resistance. Ji-hoon, Su-yeon, and Min-woo were brought before Tarkin once more. Their wounds from the arena had been treated, but their defiance remained intact. Ji-hoon stood tall, his arms crossed as he glared at the Chancellor. "So," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "What's next? Another monster? Or are you finally done playing games?" Tarkin's glowing eyes narrowed. "Your resilience is admirable, human, but it will not save your kind. You will return to your planet and warn your people of what is coming. Let them prepare for their doom." Ji-hoon's expression darkened. "You really don't get it, do you? Threatening us won't work. Humanity doesn't bow to fear. We rise above it." Tarkin ignored him, gesturing for the guards to escort the humans to their ship. As they were led away, Yunji lingered behind, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the memory of the humans' teamwork in the arena, their ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome overwhelming odds. Something about their unity struck a chord deep within her, stirring doubts she had never felt before. Back on Earth, Ji-hoon, Su-yeon, and Min-woo reported their ordeal to the United Earth Defense Council, UEDC. The council was a coalition of leaders from across the globe, tasked with protecting humanity from extraterrestrial threats. At first, many dismissed the warning about the Valonians, dismissing them as overconfident aliens who would think twice before attacking Earth. But Ji-hoon's account of their technology, tactics, and sheer arrogance made it clear that this was no ordinary threat. "We need to prepare," Ji-hoon urged, standing before the council in a dimly lit briefing room. "These guys aren't like anything we've faced before. They're smart, organized, and they don't hold back. If we wait for them to come to us, we'll be wiped out." Some members of the council argued against taking drastic measures, pointing out the lack of evidence and the cost of mobilizing global defenses. Others, however, agreed with Ji-hoon, recognizing the gravity of the situation. Among them was General Hyong, a seasoned military strategist known for his pragmatism. "If even half of what Captain Ji-hoon says is true," he said, "then we have no choice but to act. Better to be ready than caught off guard." In the end, the council authorized a full-scale defense initiative. Troops were mobilized, weapons stockpiled, and evacuation plans drawn up for major cities. Scientists worked around the clock to develop countermeasures against Valonian technology, while engineers fortified key locations with advanced shielding. The world braced itself for war. Months passed, and life on Earth continued as usual, on the surface at least. Beneath the calm exterior, tensions simmered. Ji-hoon spent his days training soldiers, teaching them unconventional tactics, and emphasizing the importance of teamwork. Su-yeon coordinated intelligence efforts, analyzing data from satellites and scouting missions to predict the Valonians' movements. Min-woo, meanwhile, worked tirelessly in labs, reverse engineering fragments of Valonian tech scavenged from their crashed ship. Despite the preparations, Ji-hoon couldn't shake the feeling that they were still outmatched. The Valonians had centuries of experience conquering other worlds, while humanity had only its ingenuity and determination to rely on. Still, he refused to give up hope. "We've faced impossible odds before," he reminded his team. "And every time, we've found a way to win. This time will be no different." Finally, the day came. Early warning systems detected the arrival of a massive Valonian fleet in Earth's orbit. The ships descended upon the planet like a swarm of locusts, their sleek designs cutting through the atmosphere with terrifying precision. Cities fell under attack almost immediately, skyscrapers crumbling under energy blasts and streets reduced to rubble. Millions perished in the initial assault, and chaos engulfed the planet. But humanity didn't surrender. Instead, they fought back with ferocity unmatched by any other species. Civilians turned abandoned buildings into fortresses, using whatever materials they could find to construct barricades and traps. Hackers infiltrated Valonian communication networks, sowing confusion among their ranks. Soldiers employed guerrilla tactics, striking quickly and retreating before the enemy could respond. Jihoon led a daring raid on one of the Valonians' ground bases, coordinating with local resistance fighters to disable their artillery. Suyan provided critical support from the shadows, feeding real-time intel to the team via encrypted channels. Minwoo rigged explosives from scrap parts, turning everyday objects into deadly weapons. Together, they inflicted heavy losses on the invaders, forcing them to divert resources to defend their positions. Kyun, now leading the invasion effort, grew increasingly frustrated. He had expected humanity to collapse under the weight of superior firepower, but instead they adapted and struck back with relentless determination. "This isn't possible," he shouted during a tactical meeting aboard the flagship. "How can primitives fight like this?" Yunji, who had accompanied the fleet to Earth, listened quietly. She had seen firsthand the resilience of the humans, both in the arena and now on their home turf. She knew that Kyun's frustration stemmed from a fundamental misunderstanding. The Valonians had always relied on fear to conquer others, but humanity thrived on something far stronger: hope. As the battle raged on, Jihoon devised a bold plan to turn the tide. Using stolen Valonian tech, he and his team infiltrated the flagship, aiming to disable its primary weapon systems and cripple the fleet's command structure. The mission was risky, but Jihoon knew it was their best chance to strike a decisive blow. The infiltration went smoothly at first. Disguised in captured Valonian armor, Jihoon, Suyan, and Minwoo moved through the ship's corridors undetected. They reached the central control room without incident, where Minwoo set to work, hacking into the system. "Give me a minute," he muttered, his fingers flying across a holographic interface. "Just need to reroute the power grid." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Kyun burst into the room, his weapon drawn. "I knew you'd try something like this," he growled, advancing toward them. Behind him, a squad of Valonian soldiers took aim. Jihoon stepped forward, his hands raised in mock surrender. "Relax, big guy, we're just here for a chat," Kyun sneered. "Your tricks won't save you this time, human. Prepare to die." Before Kyun could fire, Suyeon sprang into action. She hurled a plasma grenade at the soldiers, creating a diversion that allowed Jihoon and Minwoo to dive for cover. In the ensuing chaos, Minwoo completed the hack, triggering a cascade failure in the ship's systems. Lights flickered, and machinery groaned as the flagship began to lose power. Yunji appeared at the doorway, her expression conflicted. She hesitated for a moment, then fired a single shot, not at the humans, but at Kyun, disabling his weapon. "Go!" she said urgently. "Now!" Jihoon didn't waste time questioning her motives. "Thanks," he said, grabbing Minwoo and pulling him toward the exit. Suyan covered their retreat, trading shots with the remaining soldiers until they reached an escape pod. As the pod launched, Jihoon looked back at the flagship, now drifting helplessly in space. "That ought to slow them down," he muttered. The sabotage dealt a significant blow to the Valonian fleet, forcing them to regroup and reassess their strategy. On the ground, humanity seized the opportunity to push back harder, reclaiming territory and driving the invaders further away from key cities. Slowly but surely, the tide of the war began to shift. For Jihoon and his team, the victory was bittersweet. They had lost countless allies and suffered unimaginable losses, but they had also proven something vital. Humanity's spirit could not be crushed. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, they had refused to give up. As the fighting continued, Yunji watched from afar, her loyalty torn between her people and the ideals she had come to admire in the humans. She knew the war was far from over, but for the first time, she dared to believe that there might be another way, a path beyond fear and domination. And somewhere amidst the ruins of Earth, Jihoon stood atop a pile of debris, gazing up at the stars. "Bring it on," he whispered, his voice steady and resolute. "We're just getting started." The Valonian fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, was now in disarray. Jihoon's sabotage of the flagship had dealt a crippling blow, leaving their command structure fractured and their forces scattered. Chancellor Tarkin, furious at the turn of events, demanded immediate retaliation. He ordered his remaining ships to focus their attacks on Earth's capital city, a sprawling metropolis that served as the heart of humanity's resistance. If they could destroy it, he reasoned, they could break humanity's spirit once and for all. But humanity wasn't about to let that happen. Word of the impending assault spread quickly, and Jihoon rallied every available fighter, soldiers, civilians, hackers, engineers, to defend the city. The streets were fortified with makeshift barricades, and underground bunkers were converted into command centers. Every man, woman, and child played a role, whether it was manning weapons, tending to the wounded, or spreading messages through encrypted channels. For the first time in history, humanity stood united, not just as nations, but as a single species fighting for survival. Jihoon stood atop a crumbling skyscraper overlooking the city, his eyes scanning the horizon. The sky was darkened by the shadow of the Valonian fleet, their ships blotting out the sun. "This is it," he said softly, more to himself than to anyone else. Beside him, Suyan adjusted her rifle, her expression grim but determined. Minwoo was hunched over a portable console, running final checks on the EMP device they planned to use against the invaders. It was risky, untested, and potentially suicidal, but it was their only chance. The battle began at dawn. The Valonians launched wave after wave of attacks, their energy cannons tearing through buildings and sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Explosions lit up the sky, and the ground shook beneath the feet of those still standing. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity fought back with everything they had. Soldiers fired from rooftops, snipers picked off enemy commanders, and civilians hurled Molotov cocktails at advancing troops. Even children contributed, using slingshots to launch small explosives at the aliens' legs. Amidst the chaos, Jihoon led a daring charge toward the center of the city, where the Valonians had established a forward base. His team moved swiftly, dodging blasts and taking down enemies with precision. Suyan covered their advance, her sharpshooting skills unmatched as she eliminated targets with deadly accuracy. Minwoo stayed close behind, clutching the EMP device like a lifeline. "We're almost there!" he shouted over the din of battle. As they neared the base, they encountered General Kyun. The towering Valonian stood alone, his weapon raised and his glowing eyes filled with hatred. "You think you can stop us?" he roared, charging at Jihoon. With terrifying speed, the two clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, each blow reverberating through the air. Kyun was stronger, faster, and far more experienced, but Jihoon relied on agility and cunning. He ducked under Kyun's swings, striking whenever he saw an opening. Suyon tried to intervene, but another group of Valonian soldiers blocked her path. She fought fiercely, taking them down one by one, her movements fluid and precise. Meanwhile, Minwoo reached the control panel for the base's shield generator. His hands trembled as he worked to disable it, sweat dripping down his face. Come on," he muttered, his fingers flying across the interface. Finally, the shield flickered and died, leaving the base vulnerable. Seeing this, Jihoon redoubled his efforts. With a final, desperate lunge, he drove his weapon into Kyun's chest, causing the general to stagger backward. For a moment, Kyun glared at Jihoon, his glowing eyes dimming as life drained from his body. Then, with a low growl, he collapsed to the ground. With the shield down, Jihoon signaled Minwoo to activate the EMP device. "Do it!" he yelled, his voice barely audible over the explosions around them. Minwoo hesitated for a split second, then pressed the button. A pulse of energy surged outward, frying the electronics of every Valonian weapon and vehicle within range. Their advanced technology, once their greatest strength, became their downfall. Soldiers froze in confusion as their weapons powered down, leaving them defenseless against the human counterattack. Chancellor Tarkin watched the scene unfold from aboard his ship, his expression one of disbelief and rage. "How could this happen?" he demanded, turning to his remaining advisors. "They are primitives. How can they—" Before he could finish, alarms blared throughout the vessel. Yunji stepped forward, her weapon drawn. "It's over, Chancellor," she said firmly. "Your reign of fear has ended." Tarkin's eyes widened in shock. "Commander Yunji, what have you done?" Yunji didn't answer. Instead, she fired a single shot, disabling the ship's core systems. The lights flickered, and the hum of the engines faltered. Outside, Jihoon and his team seized the opportunity to board the flagship, storming its corridors with renewed determination. They fought their way to the bridge, where Tarkin awaited them, surrounded by a handful of loyal guards. "You dare challenge me?" Tarkin spat, raising his weapon. But before he could fire, Jihoon tackled him, pinning him to the ground. The two struggled, their breaths ragged and their bodies battered from the long fight. Finally, Jihoon managed to disarm Tarkin, holding him at gunpoint. "It's not about challenging you," Jihoon said, his voice cold and steady. "It's about proving something. You thought fear made you strong, but you were wrong. Fear doesn't win wars, it loses them. Humanity fights for something greater, hope, unity, and the future. That's why you'll never understand us, and that's why you'll always lose." Tarkin stared up at him, his glowing eyes dimming as the realization sank in. Slowly, he lowered his gaze, defeated. Around them, the surviving Valonians surrendered, their morale shattered. In the aftermath, the Valonian fleet retreated, their numbers decimated, and their pride broken. Humanity emerged victorious, though the cost had been immense. Cities lay in ruins, millions had perished, and the scars of war would take generations to heal. But amidst the devastation, there was also hope. For the first time, humanity had faced an extraterrestrial threat and prevailed, not through superior technology or brute force, but through resilience, ingenuity, and unity. Jihoon stood on the outskirts of the ruined capital, gazing at the horizon. The sun was rising, casting golden light over the wreckage. Behind him, Suyeon approached, her steps weary but steady. "We did it," she said quietly. "Against all odds, we won." Jihoon nodded, though his expression remained somber. "Yeah, we did. But it came at a price. Too many lives lost, too much destroyed. I just hope we remember what this war taught us. That fear isn't our enemy. Division is. As long as we stay united, nothing can break us." Minwoo joined them moments later, carrying the EMP device. Its casing was cracked, and wires hung loose, but it had served its purpose. "What do we do now?" he asked, looking between his teammates. "We rebuild," Jihoon replied simply, "and we prepare. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the universe is full of dangers. But we're ready for whatever comes next." Yunji, now living among humans as a defector, watched from a distance. She had chosen to stay on Earth, drawn by the courage and compassion she had witnessed during the war. As she looked up at the stars, she whispered to herself, "They thought they knew fear, but they didn't understand hope." And so humanity moved forward, forever changed by the conflict but stronger for it. The Valonians had underestimated them, but they wouldn't make the same mistake again. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, Earth burned brighter than ever, a beacon of resilience and defiance, proof that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire that no darkness could extinguish.